Hello everyone, this is week 5. So before we start the seminar, there are a few things probably I would like to remind you. First is about the timetable. So unlike the last week or the week before, from this week, Tuesday, 2 sessions will be repeated. So the first session at this moment, this session, will be repeated at a next session. So on your timetable, there will be only one slot displayed. Could you double check your timetable? Wednesday remains the same. So the first session and the second session are identical. You only need to attend one session, which appears on your timetable. So you may ask why this has been changed. Sorry, I don't know. I got to this change end of the last week. I don't know the reason. Another thing I have to mention is that Jeremy will not teach within this week. So he will not be in this session, nor he will be in the next session. So what we are going to do this week for this session, I will talk about the peer review group and also week 4 solutions. And also tomorrow about the lab will be the same materials for the week 4, and also you got the chance to work on your peer review work tomorrow. Another thing is, we know some students have used Windows operation systems, and then they had a problem with Spark setup, with Anaconda, Python, PySpark setup. So I think last week Jeremy have already demonstrated that for the week 3 exercises. And also you may have already attended the workshop session on Wednesdays. Some of you already sorted it out. However, as far as I know, I got email from a student. Some students still have problem with the setup. So if you can use insecure server, please do so. If you cannot, for example, you couldn't get a password, username correct, then my colleague, a teaching assistant, has made a video for you about on Windows 10 system, how to install Anaconda, how to get your Python Jupyter notebook running, and how you can download the PySpark, get it run for the, as required in week 3. So he will upload that at Blackboard as a YouTube link, I think. So now let's have a look at peer review group. So I remember last 2 weeks, many of us have asked me questions regarding group assignment questionnaire. I understand that a lot of us has concern regarding the group assignment, especially we are doing teaching online. So Jeremy has answered the many questions we had regarding to group assignment. So just to remind you, I think it will be more convenient. You go to Blackboard, go to assignment folder, and within that you see group assignment 6% folder. So in there you find the self-enroll operation, and enroll your group. For example, some of you may have already got group of 4. Please enroll yourself to that system. So as we know, it's about 6% of total mark of you. Normally it will be from week 6 to 8. However, given the current situation, we understand there were IT problems, Blackboard problems, and also online teaching difficulties. So now you can start your group assignment now. And then for this week, we're not going to introduce any new learning material. We just work on the week 4 material so everyone can catch up. I know some of you haven't completed your week 3 material as well. So what I'll do, I will upload solutions even if haven't been released yet to Blackboard, so you could get the solutions. So week 4 ones, 2 solutions, I will upload them on Blackboard after this session complete, or tomorrow. Okay, so some question you have asked is if you're from different degree programs, some from data science, some from advanced computing, can you make a group together? Yeah, you can. There's no disadvantage on that. So some of you ask, is maximum number group 4? Yeah, group 4 is maximum. So every student produce about 500 words. So in regarding to minimum, I wouldn't think 2 will be, what Jeremy says, no minimum. But if you want to work by yourself, you can, but that is far from ideal. So at least 2, but I recommend you go to the 4. So much easier, because you work on your own, you produce much number of words than other students. So if you want to do group by yourself, you cannot argue that it's unfair because you need to produce more words than your colleague. So group 4 is ideal. So you just enroll yourself on Blackboard, so you don't need email us, you don't need, contact us. So in the end of the month, 29th of October, if you cannot find a group of 4, I know it's difficult given the current situation. You cannot meet your friend, in person, or colleague, a classmate. So I understand that it's difficult. So if you cannot, it's normal. Given our group of 400 students, they haven't just met. Briefly in the week 1 or 2. Where only about 15 students attend the physical session. So I understand that, there's no problem. If you cannot find the group, we will locate you automatically on Blackboard. So you will see, end of this week, you will see your name, your group member. So you can contact them and to get, work together. Okay, now we come back to week 4 solutions. So week 4 is about Spark data frame. We have already learned the theory of data frame. So Spark data frame will allow us to make Spark SQL on the dataset. So Spark SQL have some similarity to relational database for SQL. But Spark SQL mainly work on Spark RDD, resilient distributed datasets. So the major difference between the SQL for relational database and RDD is that RDD cannot be changed. So any SQL statement normally used for relational database. For example, if you want to update, you want to insert, you want to remove a column or row, you cannot do that. So because we will distribute dataset, especially big one, over a large amount of machines. So if you update something in one machine and without updating another one, it will be inconsistent and different. So that's why we use we were not going to use relational database. So in the last week, so week 3, I think we have already seen this, so I'm not going to repeat that. So the dataset we used for week 3 is called breast test. So you can name this notebook as the breast. Jeremy asked you use some breast test, but anyway, you can use. I used the 4A, so it's really up to you. So I think last week we have already know the configuration, set master local, set Apple name. I said the 4A. You can have a different name. So we have already learned that. So I display that, so I can see my Spark context have the following configurations. Okay, now we add Spark SQL context. So we now need to import additional than last week, which use Spark SQL API. So that is the standard. That is standard SQL context. How to import from Spark SQL. So we display that, and we see the configuration. Okay, we also import Spark sessions. Spark session. So we can see the Spark session in memory as a Spark context. Now we start to look at the exercises. So first we need to read the text to an RDD. So because this file, so you need to make sure the password is correct. So because this machine is Windows, I need to make a video, and this has speaker and the camera, so it's slightly different with another machine I used before. So you need to make sure. So this is the online setup. You probably can try if you can get this one. But anyway, you need to find out your exactly place you put the CSV file. If you got this wrong, you cannot read the text. So make sure you get the right directory. Okay. So it's all different from student to student, because it depends on your configuration, your setup, etc. So you need to make sure that's correct. So I highlight here. So you can see previously we tried different. It's OneDrive module, and then the dataset was underneath of exercises. But now you need to find it out. You download where you did download the last week. Okay, we have seen this function in week 3. It's called Python function. It's the same thing we had in the week 3. So we try to include all data columns. So we then this RDD is called lines. Okay, so we got split by common. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are all the variable name, attribute name, for example, in the relational database, and then we convert this gender to two variables. So we have seen that in week 3. So now we want to drop the header now, because this CSV file have a heading which include this variable name. So we can either remove that file, ignore that, or just put error checking around integer. So here, example, we apply a filter. So header equals to first the lines. The lines is the RDD. So we got the first line here, and then we remove the header. So with field function, and then we split line into column ID. So that is the function we have called here. So that will do this for us. So now we just see how many rows we have, double check, which is so how many values, how many records in RDD. So we just take 5 lines to double check if we got that correctly. So the first line we have seen is actual header, and 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 lines from the RDD about the records. So we just run this, we get that. This will help us double check everything. So Jeremy made some example here. So this helps us for debugging things. For example, so we need to double check January, week 2. So looks like they are correct. So make sure, because we haven't. So because at the beginning, we will not disregard the headers. We only put the all data without headers. So we want to compare if the data actually are the same. So the lines has headers, the RDD only have data. So actually this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 0, 1, 2, 3, 2. Yeah. So this one has one more record than the previous one. So that is correct. Okay, we move on. It looks like we already got correct data in our RDD. Okay, so now I print header. Header is from here. So print out. Okay, we split by command. Okay, so now we're starting to create a data frame. So this is quite important. So we got RDD. We have the header list. So this is the function we create a data frame based on RDD. So there are several ways to do that. We have already seen that in the lecture as well. So there are 1 or 2 data frame. So they use different way to create it. So head list, I just copy and paste. Note that this one is slightly different from the previous one. Okay. So now I displayed my data frame, and then we also display they should be identical in terms of the records. And then we print the schema, but their data type so we just examine my data frame is good enough. So print out the data, and we have seen few examples. We have seen the header. We have seen the schema. Okay, now I think some of students already asked me question. So I think we are all happy with that. So you can define your schema. So instead of print the existing data frame schema, you can define that yourself. So that is the data frame 3 is another way to do that. So the first way to do data frame is I have a head list, and then the second one is I actually put the head list manually with the name of the variables, and the third one is I define the whole structure as schema. So we have variable name, data type, and then we print the schema context. Okay. The third one is I create data frame. Because RDD only have data, so we had a schema on top of that. So print the schema, we print display some data. Okay, now is the next part. Read CSV file, which is my data frame 4. So again, you need to double check your location. You know, if you haven't got this file in the location as you specified, you cannot find it or operate that. So this is the fourth way to create a data frame. So there will be the same thing. Okay, and now the task, I think, just give me one. We do simple operation. So task 9, I think is about we find out subset of the data set with a positive result. So I think is like 35 microgram of the brace. So if we look at the previous table, we have alcohol level. So on this column, they're larger than 35. So that's a brace low alcohol level, larger than 35. And the condition, so if you want all people with that condition, we can do this. But I think the requirement is also ask you put another condition. For example, you can also say if gender equals to 1, because previously we have defined the gender 1 as male. Okay. So this part, then I display that. I got the data frame 3. I use this condition, 2 conditions joined together, and then I got output, and I display that. So you can see the alcohol level are larger or larger than 35, and the gender or equivalent to 1. Okay, that is more or less about the data frame. I think we also learned the panels. If dataset is small, not small, I mean reasonable size, you probably don't need use RDD for distributed computing. So we can convert some data frame to panels. For example, we can use smaller data sets which operate. So we don't need a lot of computational resources. We are not operate on everything. We just use sample something. Okay, so this view is copied from your exercises. So we import panels. Okay, let me have a look. Have we? Okay, and then I only use smaller data sample. So it's slightly from your exercises. I use the function, so they will convert this to panels automatically, and then create a new dataset, new panels object. Okay, so now what we can do, we do the filtering, the function, okay, and we put this one into a new data frame. Yeah, we filter, we got this one. And we can also convert this to panels. So we calculate to do calculation on this new object, panels object. On this variable, we calculate the mean of that. So MPD is also smaller object or panels, which we can also do average on that. So basically all we need to is make a smaller data set, convert to panels, and then we can do some operation. So that gives us some calculation. We can see that the result is slightly different. So on this condition, F posters. So these have higher value than the previous one. 35 gender 1, 35 gender 2. So only difference is about the gender. So they have difference in terms of average. So this is the first part of today's workshop. So we are going to do the next session or next part in the same session later on.